One of these days, I just want to open up the podcast singing like Adele and being like, hello, it's me, and then just go into the main chorus, but today is not that day. I just wanted to say, hi, how are you doing? And then I want to tell you about my guest. So, Keltie O'Connor is someone who has always kind of had a foot in the fitness industry. A lot of that is through the influence of her mom, and like her mom showed her a lot of the triumphs of fitness and kind of shaped her direction in how she does her channel, and taught her a lot of valuable lessons in like as you gain popularity you have to sort of draw your line in the sand, but she says it more eloquently than I do, and that's why you will go into this episode all fired up and ready to learn about her. So thanks for listening. Hope you enjoy. Welcome to the Lifestyle Chase. This podcast features high performers who have found a way to live their best life while balancing their health, wellness, friends, and family. Proudly hosted by me, Chris Little. Without further ado, let's get started. So, welcome to episode 62 of the Lifestyle Chase. I'm joined by the very famous Keltie O'Connor. How are you doing today?
Good. You use the F word right there. Thank you. I'm flattered.
What is life like making a living primarily as an influencer?
Well, I try not to call myself influencer.
Nobody that's an influencer likes that word, so that's why I was
It's
just gonna
so
drop that bomb.
It's so pretentious. I don't know. I've always been the creative type, but I've never found a creative outlet until I found film and YouTube and all that. So like I find it the most inspiring. It's way harder than you would think it'd be, but it's like one of those, like, I think there's so many moments in life that like you grind and work so hard, and that satisfying feeling when you get past it, it's like that kind of constantly chasing that hard work to satisfaction world.
Totally. So for perspective purposes, 5 years ago, what was your life like 5 years ago?
5 years ago. Okay, I got to think like exactly 23. I could be off a year, but we're going to say about like 5 years, so no one go and be like, yeah, in this thing. But I would have been in university at that time. I wouldn't have been I would have just finished playing college ball. So I would have just been a college student. I would have been bartending. And probably that was around the time I was just getting into fitness, I'd say, and that world. And I think Instagram, my account, I just started then. And that's, so I think I was just doing Instagram, but it wasn't a thing back then. It was more Instagram just launched. And then, yeah, going to school for marketing at the time, doing some personal training, and then bartending on weekends. That would have been me 5 years ago.
So if somebody asked you your big, hairy, audacious goal during that time, what would it be?
See, I feel that was a very tough time in my life because that was the first time I didn't have that. Because I grew up my entire life focused on basketball and volleyball, and that's all I knew. And I knew I wanted to go to university, and I knew I wanted to get a really good degree. And I think in the back of my mind was always med school. And then when I got into high school, my first few years of university, that's what it was. I was med school drawn, just keeping scholarship, all that. And then when I blew up my knee, I just was like lost. And then I realized I didn't want to go to med school. I spent some time in a hospital and realized it's not like Grey's Anatomy. So I didn't want to go that. And so I think that around that, 21 to 24, it was very much, I was just doing fitness and knew I loved it. It was just kind of more of an escape now that I didn't have basketball. And I honestly had no idea. I kind of like the idea of marketing. It drew me, something always drew me to it. I love Nike and Lulu and ads and commercials. Like I always loved the Super Bowl commercials. And I didn't know what that meant at the time, but I just was kind of dabbling in that world. So honestly, at that time, I think I was crippled because there's probably 30 things I wanted to do, but none that I was streamlined, being like, this is my thing. It was just more just experimenting, lack of better terms.
So if somebody listening to the podcast, they looked up to you and they were like, well, how do I figure out my path? What do I do? Like, what kind of advice would you give them?
Mine would be just to try everything and fully try it. Now, I think there's the two things about it. There's like the person who's on a new fad diet, a new career path every week, and you're like, okay, commitment issues. That's one thing. But at the same time, you should always try something and fully try it. Like give yourself a couple weeks, fully go into it and see if it like lights you up. And then once you find something that you're just kind of like, I have this like F yes mentality, and that's how that's what I started to do with my life around that time, was like, if anything in my life wasn't like, F yes, this is absolutely what I want to be doing, or who I want to be with, or people I want to surround myself, where I want to live, I just started cutting it out until I kind of cut it out till the very few siphons, being like, this is 100% what I want to do. So if you're in your 20s, frick, try everything. Like experiment. The worst comes to worst, you throw away a year in your life in your 20s, at least you can be like, wow, I actually don't want to be a lawyer, versus you being 35 and being like, oh, maybe I should just done that 6 months in that job or just try that. So I think if there's like something pulling you towards something and you're at that age, like 100% go for it.
Agreed. So what was the very first job that you had? Like just in
Oh,
general.
first?
First job.
Oh, that's so embarrassing. So embarrassing. I'm gonna get called out. So I didn't work at all in like high school or right in college. Like I was blessed, I was on scholarship, and that I worked really hard to get that basketball scholarship. And that was just kind of, I had no time but for school and basketball in high school. So I didn't work in high school, but my first job, the summer of like going to my first and second year, I was like, okay, I'm going to get a job to fill time. And this is when Abercrombie Fitch was cool. Okay. So I was the person that stood at the front of the Abercrombie store and like welcomed you in. So that was, and I got a discount on their clothes. So I thought it was the coolest thing on earth at the time. But
What was the toughest part about that job? Because it's got to be like you get like the excitement of being in the spotlight, but there's got to be some drawbacks to that.
drawbacks,
Was there any drawbacks? Was it all
drawback,
just
there
good
was quite,
times?
no, definitely not. It was more of like a, I don't know if anyone's worked retail, you understand working retail. This kind of sucks. Like you go and set up the display, you fold everything, just 5 seconds later, someone's unfolding it, and you're just like trying to be polite, but you actually like, it's a very boring job. Like it's very repetitive, like no excitement. So for the first like month, it's cool and exciting, and then you're like, oh, another day of saying, hey, what's going on, and folding clothes. So
Yeah,
just not for me, not for me.
yeah. Well, the thing about like jobs like that, because you said you've worked retail, you've worked at a bar. Those are two jobs that I've done as well, and I feel like it's kind of attributed to like people skills and stuff. What are
Oh,
like three of the most valuable lessons that you've learned from your small jobs like that leading up into what you do now?
okay. I'd say not so much retail because I was just like very little inside. I was so young and
Yeah,
stupid.
yeah,
Bartending, I was a bartender for years, and I have a firm belief that every single human should work in the service industry. And I know you'll agree, for like a steady amount of time, just to, first of all, you're going to always be going out to eat. So just to understand how a restaurant works, like, first of all, just, and I think it's people skills, like thinking on your feet, like bring out, bartending taught me to talk with anyone. Like I'm never uncomfortable in any social situation
yeah,
because you've talked to every person. You've talked to a drunk person, sober person, people that don't want to be there, from every walks of life. So I think that's why people should work in the service industry, is it just teaches you about people. And it teaches you work ethic, like no tomorrow. Bartending, you go on the weekends to being up till 5 or 6 a.m., not going out with friends, even though you're out, you're working
yeah.
just to go to Monday, then you're up at 8 a.m. So the like I never get jet lag now because I'm so used to just like swapping like that. So it teaches you a different kind of hard work, because I find a lot of other things aren't as hard.
Yeah.
Like then you work 9 to 5, you're like, oh, whatever. And it makes you forever appreciate a dinner. And I know it's like my third would be, anytime I go out on a Friday or Saturday, I've been out of the bar for a while, I still am like, oh my God, I have a Friday night off. I can sit and enjoy. And like, you just enjoy the little things of the restaurant experience, because you see how much the waiters had to do, how much the chef had to do for that little bit. So you just like appreciate being served so much more.
Yeah.
So those are the three things I learned from years of grueling bartending.
I agree. Like it's if nothing else, the amount that you learn about people makes a huge
Oh,
difference. Just that like you could have a person on a pedestal and then you see them in a bar and you realize that they're just human like everybody else. And
Oh
it
yeah.
teaches so much because like you get there's so many different reasons for a person to go to the bar. Sometimes you're celebrating something, sometimes you're sad about something, sometimes you just like need to burn off some time, and you understand to empathize with people because like everybody's got their shit that they got to deal with.
Yeah, you almost become a therapist when you're a bartender. And on the flip side, you learn to work with everyone because every bartender is different. They're they're a different breed always, and
Yeah,
just different people. Even like in as simple as how to respect your bar back to your manager, to all those, and just like how a team works
totally.
in a lot of ways. Like it just like I think it's the best form of, as you said, teaching people skills in a very high stress situation.
Absolutely. So you've lived at a few different places. You've lived on the East Coast, right?
Yeah, I lived in Halifax for 2 years.
Okay, and then
Yeah,
Edmonton, and then
yeah.
now
So
Toronto.
yep. So
So what's your favorite place that you've lived so far out of those three plus anywhere else?
anywhere else? So I actually get this question like, is this forever home and all this? Edmonton will always be like this magical spot to go back to. Like as cliche as it is, I love going back every 3 to 6 months. You do the Cactus Club, you do the Pint, you do Central, you see the same people. It's like coming home to like a house party. And after 3 days, I'm over it. But those 3 days are like the best 3 days.
Yeah.
It's the same old, same old. So Edmonton has a very special place in my heart, but it's definitely not my favorite city. Halifax was so much fun for college. If you're any college students and out there and you just don't, you want to have a college experience in Canada, which is rare unlike the States, go out east. I fully left college being like, I never want to go back to college, which is good. I did it. I got it out of my system. And then Toronto is magical in the sense that like it lights a fire under my butt to the point of burnout, but you're around like-minded people. There's so many opportunities. You're guns a-blazing. So it's perfect where I'm at right now in my life. I
Yeah.
don't think Toronto will be forever. I've got like some things on the horizon. I've caught my eyes and stuff, but at least for the next while, it's where I'm meant to be. And that's why I came out here.
What was the biggest struggle about moving to Toronto for you? Let's say in like the first 2 months of moving there or the 2 months leading up to moving there.
I think I didn't know 2 months ahead of time I was going to move there. I had like
Whoa.
3 weeks. Yeah, it was actually like this time last year. I visited Toronto, came back a week later, and in that week was like, guys, I'm moving to Toronto, and everyone's like, ah. I was like, no, I'm moving to Toronto. So I moved 3 weeks later. So I didn't have that much forewarning. But the first 2 months, I just would say having chronic FOMO in the sense that in Edmonton, you're always chasing, like hoping there's one opportunity to come to you. And so like whether it be one night out, one person's in town, meet this, you're everything you have to jump on. And then in my first 2 months, there was different events to go to, networking opportunities, so much. And I found myself just constantly being out and trying to take on every opportunity, being so scared this opportunity. And you have to have that. But I went to the point of like, sleeping 4 hours every night, never being home, never having any care of my mental health, like so many just and then realizing you need to have a bit of routine. And so I just I let everyone else's routine like influence mine. So like productivity goes down, your mental health goes down, your physical health, but chasing something. So just realizing when you're in a city like this or in New York, you have to take, when there's opportunities, go for it. But you can't think every opportunity, there's nothing else going to happen to the point of burnout. Like you have to, and it's a tough balance. But now after a year, I've kind of got that, like know when to say no and when to say yes. I've got a bit better now.
So what are your rules for like setting your personal boundaries to sort of like protect your energy, stuff like that?
That's the last 3 weeks, very big thing. But it's a learning process. I think with just how my life has been in the last year, it was just very much, hoping for this moment for so many years and it happening, but it happening kind of an overnight 0 to 100 type mentality. So it got away from me. And so I don't really have advice as much as you just have to know your self-worth and if it's actually worth your time. And then learning to when to let go of control and trust other people. Like I know that was a big thing for me, being a bit of a control freak, or just I have such a high work ethic that I'll just do everything. And then realizing I can only do so much. And so taking on other people, hiring out, building a team around me, and not trying to be such a one woman show. That was, I think, the biggest thing for me. So realizing when it's right to hire or build a team or ask for help, whatever that case may be. Other thing is just talking about it. I was always very closed-minded, never want to put my problems on anyone. I just never want to be open if I was struggling. And just in the last few months with my best friends, my own mother, just like when I'm struggling, just telling them, being like, oh, I'm down. And they just like, I want to help them. They want to help me. So just being a bit more vulnerable in that sense.
Yeah.
And then it's just nice. Usually they just snap me out of it. And they're like, Keltie, you just need to do this. And you're like, oh yeah, no, that's that simple. So that would be in the last little bit. And then just, I'm still trying to figure it out. But for me right now, just creating those boundaries or just hiring a team and like talking to people about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's important that like that conversation is out there, that people understand that everybody's kind of navigating their boundaries. There's no magical like fairy that knows their boundaries and they're just killing it. Like people are like figuring that out actively every day. And it's a matter of like considering it kind of thing.
Well, exactly. Like I'm in my 20s. And that's half of it, just realizing I don't have these concrete answers and being open, like just trying to figure yourself out what feels most like you, what feels right, what like just not to be like cliche, like, oh, follow the energy and the light. But like in essence, everything you should do should bring, that sense of like clarity and inspiration and bring more of it into your life. And those are kind of the boundaries. As soon as you start to feel that like draininess or that lump, and then that's, honestly, you just got to trust your gut and just use some rational thinking and trust your gut. Like, I think we're all just trying to figure it out.
Yeah. We're all just wandering through the field, trusting our gut. Like, is this the right gut feeling, or was the other right gut feeling the thing?
You never know. So I was like, I always say just trust your gut, because worst comes to worst. I feel if you don't trust it, you're going to regret not trusting it, because you're like, oh, I should have. And if you trusted your gut and it goes wrong, you're like, oh, well, you know what? I trusted my gut and went with myself. So either way, you kind of win.
Yeah.
So I feel that's just kind of how you have to go about it.
What is the moment of personal growth that you were the most scared for?
Personal growth.
Like something big that like was pivotal in your career or your life, but you talked yourself out of it. But then you did it eventually. You were very reluctant.
Okay, well, I guess it's actually very symbolic to like this tomorrow. So I guess I'll say this one. 2 years ago when I was in Halifax, I had an opportunity to go to New York for a collaboration. And I thought it was going to be my big break. I thought it was going to be everything. Like I thought this was going to make it. I was doing YouTube at the time, but it was so small. And I was like, doing this collaboration is going to make it, all this kind of stuff. Like I thought this was my big break. And some people in my life who, nothing against them, they were just, we weren't meant to be, told me it was not a smart decision to go to New York, and that I was just, it was a waste of money, yada, yada. But something in my gut told me, I was like, no, I have to jump on this. I went there, did it. It didn't feel right when I was in New York. Like I did all the stuff, and I ended up like never really releasing it. The collaboration, all that kind of stuff. Like the details don't really matter, but coming back. But when I was in New York, it was the most inspiring, few days of my entire life, because it was so for me, for what exactly I knew I wanted to do, versus like so long not really wanting to admit what I wanted to do with my life. And this is the first step, being like, no, I fully want to go for it. And being in New York, just seeing so many like-minded people, meeting people there. And I was like, this is what I want to do. And I distinctly remember, like, it's funny, it's in my video. This is why it's ironic, and that comes out tomorrow, is I stood on 7th Avenue in New York looking at this big Nike sign. And I, in that moment, was like, wrote down like 5 goals, like life goals I have. And I just told myself then, I'm just going to, everything, tunnel vision, just go after those. So I came back from New York, and I had all the footage, this collaboration, was supposed to send it off. And something in my gut was like, no, don't do this. And to this day, I'm really, like, it wasn't like racy or anything like that. It was just like, I don't know, it didn't feel right. And I just decided to just go for everything I wanted to go for in that moment. And just those people in my life I kind of stepped away from. I moved back to Edmonton and I stopped caring what people think and just went completely for these 5 goals. And ironically, one of them is coming true tomorrow. So that is really, really exciting. But yeah, and like it's just funny that I thought going to New York, that collab and all that would have been, but to this day, I trusted my gut, and by not doing that collaboration, by not going through with it, it led me to what I actually 100% wanted to do instead of just like going this what I thought would make me grow on that, and then the dream's coming true tomorrow. So I guess
That's
that would
awesome.
be big.
That's
Yeah, and
exciting.
then just stop. Yeah, it's pretty pumped.
So I'm just trying to think the next question. What's your favorite breed of dog?
Oh, easy. Well, actually, it's not easy. There's like a three-way tie, but it's a standing joke. My friend group calls me their golden retriever. It's a long story, but so golden retrievers have a little place in my heart because that's like my personality trait. But I love labradoodles, golden doodles. So I think like any of those or a lab. I grew up with a lab and labradoodle. So anything of that mix, that lab, golden doodle, golden retriever, is just there's nothing happier on earth. Like that's all I want in the next 5 years. One of
That's
those.
awesome. I am like a big advocate for like dogs in gyms make people stronger. Like whether it's just that dog kind of giving you good energy and motivating you to do a personal best or whatever. So like the world needs more dogs, straight up.
It's the best mental health thing. I'll preach that. It's why I say it every time. Like you cannot be in a bad mood. You can be in the worst mood and dog is still gonna love you. You can feel ugly, you can feel let down, they're still gonna love you as much. And like all they want to do is love you. And like humans do not deserve dogs. Like they're just like our little mental health bundles of joy.
I agree. So, who are 3 people in your life that you look up to that's like they're your mentor or just somebody that you want to be more like?
Mm. I'm gonna like I know in like an hour go back and be like, oh, I should have said these. But first of all, I gotta say my mom. My mom is just like so much inspiration in my life. Like and this like little things I'm even growing into now, like little things I'm so thankful for that I didn't even realize growing up how blessed I was and little things she's taught me. And so every day just wanna the message she had in the fitness community, I just never realized how powerful it was growing up because I was just around it. It was just mom. And now realizing like that has been that core that she raised me around is like the entire theme of my channel and why my channel's doing well. Um, and just like little things like I released a full day of eating a week ago and I didn't think anything of it. It was just like, okay, well, just people want it. And I had comments being like, oh my God, who raised you? And I was like, wow, I've never realized like how in the diet culture that females are brought up with, how a, my mom didn't even like bring it up. Like I wasn't even aware of what a diet was till I was like 20. I was like, I like just that kind of mentality I brought up in such a healthy relationship with fitness and nutrition and that. And so now being able to spread that and that what she was so ahead of her time spreading that message in the 80s and 90s when it was just starvation diets. So just like living on her legacy in essence. So she would be the best role model. She'd be one. Who would be some others? I gotta say the people like the Serena Williams of the world who are just like taking like boundaries that like going past that females never have. Like, you have to look up to that. Like she's charting her own territories. Like she's inspiring nations. I think the coolest thing was Rogers Cup was here in Toronto last weekend. And to be honest, I didn't think the guys were playing. I thought it was just the girls this weekend and that the guys were next weekend because there's so much footage on females because Serena was here.
Yeah.
And like obviously everyone else, like, and even though she didn't technically win, but like just to show like what she's been able to do for female sports in that sense. And that just like in terms of diversity in every aspect, that she's just every like, and that she's taken the world on her shoulders. Like she's amazing and that she can still perform like that when knowing so many eyes are on her, so many expectations, like every little thing. Like she's got to be such a massive role model for like the female movement in so many ways. And then some other ones I'm thinking of, just like content creators who I've looked up to, is like a Casey Neistat. I've always envisioned, who's just the rebel of him. I've always admired. As much as like I don't come from a natural rebellious side, but I think there's the fine line of rebel, of not adhering to the status quo, like not breaking laws and like doing what's morally against, but he was always moral, but being like, no, this is wrong, and how much he stands up for other creators in the YouTube field, and he's almost like the dad of YouTube, and that he didn't break the rules as much as he like broke the ceiling in a lot of ways, and like knew what was morally right and fought for that in the creators field. And so she had this new form of creativity, of like your own entrepreneur type creative. So I think I'll forever admire his guts to do that.
Yeah, I like those. Those are good answers. So the next question I have for you is, because you're female and you're
Mm-hmm.
active on social media, you're going to get a lot of weirdos coming at you through the DMs, stuff like that.
Yeah.
What's like the most outrageous thing that you've had happen? And like how do you like continue with that coming at you no matter what? Like it doesn't ever stop, does it? So like how do you keep your head strong and like hold strong to your own like self-worth, stuff like that?
Oh, it doesn't stop. It gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. So like anyone who's like growing, or that's kind of your goal, is to have like a YouTube following, Instagram follow, whatever, something on social media. No, you have to build yourself a backbone and like build confidence in yourself before you want to go on there. And that's always my biggest tip. Anyone who's like, I'm nervous to start YouTube, what people are going to say. And I'm like, yeah, no, they're going to say, and they're going to be ruthless. Like they will cut you deep in ways you didn't know. And I'm lucky. I have a very beyond positive comment section in terms of the world of social media. So I will never want to paint it as like, oh, woe was me. But you just got to become very confident with yourself. And I've learned that the creeps you gotta laugh at. You're just like, oh my god, you just gotta envision the creepy dude in his basement, like all alone. You're just like, you just have to laugh and like try and think of them being like a bar stool meme. So that's like what I go off with that mentality. I was like, I just wait for the worst one and I'm gonna post it, and then it's just gonna go viral. So that's what I think of the creepy dudes. But the mean ones, I always, anytime I get a really mean comment, I say a little like prayer, or just like a moment of silence in essence for the person, because I know if anyone took the time of their day to rip me apart, they're having a way worse day than I am, and they're just taking it out on me. They're
Yeah.
trying to build themselves up, and I'm just the blogging. So I just look at it that way and be like, you're suffering. Um, and so I've just, sometimes it's a little cringe and I'm like, oh, okay, that cuts deep. But you just got to learn, like, you got to keep your emotional capacity for all the nice things. And I'm trying to get better at that. Instead of the one bad comment letting it weigh you down, all the positive, waste all your emotions on that. And like, how unfair is it that these people are writing all these positive things and you choose to focus on the one negative person? Why are you giving them your energy? And so it's not easy doing that naturally, but it's just a work in process, a progress. Like I've always just kind of have to go that way. And that's my advice in that sense.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to frame it, and it's realistic. Next question is, what is the coolest place that you've traveled to?
Ever?
Yeah.
Oh, coolest. We have a few different ones. Like New York would be the most inspiring, but that's just because that was more so timing than New York itself. Nothing against New York, but it was just like everything coming together. Um, Vegas can be cool for stories, not really Vegas itself. I think coolest place I ever traveled was Barcelona, Spain. So I think that would have been the coolest place I've ever been.
And what stood out to you about Barcelona? Was it memories made or?
Yeah, memories and just like, yeah, it was really neat just seeing a completely different culture because it was my first time in Europe. So just the little cultural differences, like how much they relax and then go, 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 and then relax versus like they can go, go, go way harder than us because they like relax a lot more versus like we have this mentality we always have to perform at 100, but because we always think we're performing at 100, we're probably always at like 60, 70
Yeah.
versus I think they're very much like 10 to 100 versus we're constantly like 40 to 60 on the borderline like burning out. So I think, and there was memories, and then that was just cool seeing other culture.
That's awesome. So there's a question that I ask a few of my guests, and it's basically in the last 7 days, if you reflect on like the last week, what is one moment that brought you the most joy and made you the most happy?
Well, definitely the like lifelong dream coming true tomorrow. So what it was, I guess, like to explain it because it's gonna come out, so it's not like it's a secret or anything. When I was staring at that Nike poster like 2 years ago, I grew up wearing Nike. First basketball shoes Nike, first sports bra Nike. My mom was actually sponsored by Nike when she was younger. So we always had Nike clothes in the house. Like it was just such a symbolic thing in my athletic career. So I've always favored the brand very much. And when it was a very beyond out of this world goal when I stood on in New York and looked up at that. But I told myself, I have a mission that one day I'm going to collaborate with Nike. I'm somehow promoting the idea of like female in sports and that like anyone can be an athlete, anyone can move their body, that we just don't have to do weightlifting, that like fitness is sports, it's athletic, it's just going on work, it's hiking, it's just that joyfulness of fitness, and it's almost play, like a kid on the playground is fitness, like that kind of mentality. And I was like, one day I'm going to collaborate with Nike to promote that. I had no idea what. I was like, hey, what are you, this little girl from Edmonton? Like, what are you thinking? But at my time, I told myself, I was like, no, tunnel vision. And then I was making videos for a long time and had no real direction. But I had this weird hunch a year and a half ago. And I was like, I'm going to make a Nike sports bra try-on haul. And it didn't do that well. But like over time, it kind of grew. And then a few months ago, I got an email from Nike. Had to check it was spam 100 times. And I was like, no, this isn't a thing, because they don't collaborate with YouTubers or Instagram or anything in that. It's just kind of professional athletes, models. That's all they've ever done work with. And they wanted to do some kind of project with me. It was a lot of back and forth and a lot of me being like, oh, this isn't actually going to happen. Like they're going to fall through, because they'd never done anything with a YouTuber. And then last Tuesday, I got the final like, oh no, we want this video by this. And it was a very short time frame, Nikki, to get this video done, I won't lie. And went guns blazing, but I'm the like first YouTuber to do a collaboration with Nike and a sponsored video. And so that video comes out tomorrow. So it's kind of I didn't know how this would happen, but the video is me testing all Nike sports bras against different workouts and different body types, trying them on. And in essence, it's the premise of my channel and my mission in life. And tomorrow it's happening. So that's been a lot of a pinch me moment.
That's exciting. That's awesome. And it's cool to see, like, because I've kind of known of you for a while now. Like, you helped me out with the Yeg Fitness Industry Night video. And just you've been sort of like somebody that most people within fitness have heard of just because of social media. That helps. But just to kind of see everybody in their progress through their careers is pretty exciting. Like, I imagine there's going to be some local Edmonton listeners that are like, oh, I follow her on Instagram. What? She's representing Nike? That's freaking sweet.
Oh, thank you. It's like, if that, like, yeah, I'm very proud to represent Edmonton in any sense I can. And like, I think storytelling is the most powerful medium in the entire world. And I'm so passionate about it. That's in essence all I do on YouTube. I tell stories. But so I live for that, hearing other people's stories of starting from, no one should be, punished for a privilege if they got, but there's nothing better than hearing like this person comes from, not saying I even came from nothing, but those are my favorite stories, hearing this person who came from God knows where, nothing, and built this massive thing. And then it just lights a fire under your butt being like, whoa, what are my excuses? So you just love hearing that like true human grind and emotion and all that. Like I love hearing stuff like that from people.
Totally. With your YouTube, like it kind of surged and got a lot of subscribers pretty fast, didn't it?
No.
No?
It's one of these things. I'm going to warn everyone. I get this all the time, being like, people, oh my God, what's it like? Your YouTube grew so fast. I was like, no, it was 5 years. It's exponential growth is what people don't realize. It's like, I guess it's a podcast, but think of like flatline first year, flatline second year, little bump third year, little bump fourth year, skyrocket exponential growth fifth year. So as much as like, yeah, I won't deny it. Like in the last 6 months have been, I blew up. Like I had a video go viral in January and that's what catapulted this all. But the reason I was able to get the growth is I had that one viral video and I was already doing it. I was already putting in the work, the hours, the years of unpaid hours of editing, filming, people being like, why the hell are you wasting time? You're getting nothing from it, putting stupid amounts of money towards it. Like, and then the one takes off and I was ready for it. That's the best way to say it. I put in all those years. And so mentally I was ready for it. Not perfectly, like no one's mentally ready to go viral. And I was definitely not in the best place, but I just mean more so finding myself and the mission I want in my channel and like the demographic, all that kind of stuff and the videos that I wanted to be making. So I'd say it was 4 years of pure grind and then a little serendipity, perfect timing, a lot of luck, grace of God, karma, whatever you want to call it, universe. And then that moment happened. And then, yeah. And then since then, it's been a lot of growth.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you framed it that way because, like, I'm a big advocate for that too with fitness, with anything. Like, you got to be prepared to play the long game and, like, put in the work. Mm-hmm. And, like, even with this podcast, like, the podcast doesn't get, it might be, like, 150 listens per episode. But whenever I get, like, a new listener, then they have now 62 episodes to listen to. And the next time I get a new listener, like, that's new and they've bought into all the episodes, they like the vibe, then that'll be, like, every time it has more growth because of the work that I put in on the back end. So yeah, you got to be patient with your career, with goals, with everything.
And it's the two ways. It's like, that's such a positive way to think about it. Because I even know when I used to be doing it, anytime I got a subscriber, because it was like 10 subscribers a day at the most I would get. I would like sit there and anytime I'd see an update on a new subscriber, I'd be like, in my head, I'd be like, thank you, whoever you are, for subscribing. And because it was just, it took like, I think I was only at like 10,000 subscribers within like 4 years. Obviously like 2 years were just kind of all over the place. And then it was 2 years of like really hard work. But no, if you want to play in the long game, I think you should pray you don't get success right away. I think that's actually like the worst thing you can pray for in especially the social media career, because it goes like two ways. One, you're just not mentally prepared. You don't have the work ethic. You don't have the knowledge. You don't have the expertise. You haven't had the practice. So you just can't maintain it. So that's why people go viral and disappear. And like, I see it on YouTube, especially like this person will have this one hit and they'll get millions. And it's like their first or second video. And everyone's like, oh, that's so unfair. And I'm like, bless everything that doesn't happen. Like that's the worst thing, I think, because then you're just like expected to always have that level and you're going to screw up. So at least like all my screw ups, my really bad editing, all that, like I had to learn. Now there's the freaks that come with great, because they were video editors before, so they come to the platform, but then exactly, the work was still there. Like, and also I think no matter what, you're always going to deal with imposter syndrome. So like we were saying before, the hard work, working hard, and then getting the goal is so satisfying versus just like suddenly me giving something, you're going to feel so guilty. Because even if you put in the work, you're still going to have a bit of imposter syndrome, I feel. So getting like pure growth right off the start is never pray for it. Trust me, in the YouTube, social media world, virality, like don't pray for your first hit. Like make your mistakes when no one sees them.
What is the moment when you have felt like you just wanted to get out of the public space? Like, has that ever happened to you where you were just like, I want to delete my social media. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of like just always being out there and everybody knowing about me.
No, in the sense of like, as much as I'm very vulnerable in a lot of ways on social media, I think I was really blessed to have PR training in essence from my mother at a young age. And my mom was always, she was on TV. So I've been on TV since a young girl, just like with my mom, because she was always on live television, all this. And I didn't realize at the time that my mother was so private about our private life. Like going out in public, she would wear, and she wasn't famous in any means, she wore sunglasses and hats. And I didn't get it. I was like, why wouldn't you want people to see you and run into you? And I really, even from my first Instagram, like I never put like boyfriends on there or like boyfriend or anything. I never, who I dated or anything. And even in YouTube, I never talk about my dating. I'm only put friends in it if they want to have a YouTube channel themselves. And then I'm like, hey, of course I'm going to help you grow. But like, as much as it's just like kind of a very, very small percent of my life is on there. So I never really feel out. I'm very open, but I don't feel like I have to be open about everything. I think it's really important to have things that are sacred to you. So that's why you don't really see a lot about me on social media, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like you'll go and then you realize it's just like, yeah, a couple pictures, and I'll always be open about my fitness journey, and I'll be cruel, like unbelievably vulnerable about that. But that's all I want to be vulnerable about. And so I think you just have to balance. You can be 100% real, but you don't have to show. I think a lot of people, it scares me. I see a lot of younger people being like, oh, to be real, I have to give 100% of myself on social media. And I think that's really not good for your mental health. I think you have to know what's sacred, what being vulnerable and what being real is. But real doesn't, never lie, never be fake, never try and be saying you're not, but you don't have to show every single bit of you. And so I've definitely had burnout. That was just like overwork, and that's a different story, but I've never felt like, oh my God, I just want to delete my social media. Like
Yeah.
I'm always kind of good of being like, not, I don't know. Like I spend very little time on Instagram, which a lot of people be like, oh, you know, but like, I don't like, and I just knowing that like, it's a job. It's always kind of been a job for me. So I've just tried to get better at just like shutting it off. If that makes sense.
It's cool. That'll be important for people to understand. Like, you're able to survive that industry because you've drawn your line in the sand. You kind of, you know what is too much to share, and you know that you can't just live through the screen of your phone. So that's good.
Yeah. And I think it's whatever you're going to put on the internet, whatever it is, just you have to go in with the mentality that you're okay with people ripping it apart and judging it. At the end of the day, people can rip apart my fitness routine and me working out and doing crazy challenges. Like, it's not going to affect me as a human. Like, okay, you're like, Keltie, why didn't you do keto? I'm like, okay, I did it. It's like half humor. Like, it's entertainment. Like, that never, versus there's people who put their relationship on, and if that's you want to, I fully believe in that. Like, I think, like, look how popular The Bachelor is. I get it. But you have to then be okay with having strangers pick apart your relationship. And I know for myself, I'm not good with that. I'm like awkward even just talking to friends about relationships, let alone the whole world. So yeah, you just have to figure out what you're okay with people ripping apart. And if you're not okay with it, do not put it online.
That's good advice for anybody. I'm just going to go to the last question that I ask all of my guests. And it is, if you had one piece of advice on living your life to the fullest in the most authentic way, what would that piece of advice be?
I wish I could say it politely in one sentence, but it's going to be a run-on sentence. So kind of my theme behind my channel, as much as it seems like a fitness channel, a humor channel, health, whatever it is, the biggest premise is behind kind of two concepts. It's like feeling like you're a kid and that lightness in your life. And I think at the end of the day, everything you should do should give you that joyfulness of a kid. And I think we should never let that die. I think there's that cliche someone told me just a couple weeks ago. I remember them saying, it was like, I'm going to get this wrong and backwards, but you know what I mean? We don't grow up. What's it? We don't grow up because we stop playing. We stop playing. No, we don't stop playing because we grow up. We grow up because we stop playing. And I think like that, whether you take that into your job, into your relationships, into your friendships, into your fitness, into your just the day life, is like, you should always have that playfulness. Like, you should surround yourself with that energy. The people in your life, when you leave them, they should make you feel lit up. Like my best friends, every time I'm with them, I'm in the moment. I'm with them. I feel brought up. And so that's why they're so important. I feel like a kid playing whenever we're doing that. My fitness, my job, yeah, it's really hard work and there's adult struggles, but we should all feel like kids with adult responsibilities and a bit more maturity. And I think that's like the most important thing you can do with all aspects of your life.
I like that. That's good advice. So thanks for joining me today.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much for listening. Your support means the world to me. My challenge for you today is it's going to be about gratitude. I have to do it. I'm sorry. I'm going to make you think of 5 things that make your life what it is. Think about it as 5 things that you've had access to within the week or that you get every day that maybe you take for granted. Write them down. Remind yourself of them. Maybe it's your parents. Maybe it's your siblings, your dog. It could be that you get to work out. It could be that you have a roof over your head. It's little things, they add up, and that's what kind of puts you in a good, positive place. That's what I'm all about. Thanks for listening. Tell your friends.